All right, let's dive in. We're going to explore the amazing connections that power our planet. I'm talking everything from a single blade of grass all the way up to the fiercest predator. You know, at its core, life is really a story of who eats whom. And sometimes it's a super simple straight line, just like this one right here on the savanna. You've got the grass, which gets eaten by the grasshopper gets eaten by the baboon, and then, well, the leopard gets the baboon. See? A simple transfer of energy. So here's what we've got on tap. We're going to start with that simple chain of life, then see how it gets woven into a bigger web. We'll look at the sun's role, what happens when things get disrupted, and then, we'll talk about our own human footprint. All right, first up, the simple chain of life. We're starting with the absolute basics, the fundamental building block of any ecosystem, the food chain. And it's all about one thing, following the energy. So, what exactly is a food chain? Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a one-way street, just for energy. The arrows show you exactly which way the energy is flowing, right from the thing being eaten to the thing doing the eating. It's a super straightforward map of who eats what. And on this one-way street, you've basically got two types of players. First, you have the producers. These are the self-starters, right? Plants making their own food from sunlight. Then you have the consumers. And that's, well, pretty much everybody else. They have to eat other things to get their energy. Okay, so we've got the simple chain down, but let's be real, nature is rarely that simple, right? It's not just a straight line. This is where things start to get really cool, because those simple chains, they all start to connect. Let's just take a simple pond, for instance. It's pretty easy to spot a single food chain. You've got some water plants, they get eaten by some pond insects, a frog comes along and snacks on the insects, and then a snake gets the frog. Boom, A to B to C to D. Seems simple enough. But you have to ask yourself, right? Is nature ever really that clean? I mean, does a snake only eat frogs? And is a frog's entire diet just pond insects? Probably not. And yeah, the answer is a definite no. This is what it really looks like. It's not a chain. It's a web. A big, complex, messy food web. That snake might go for a fish instead. And that frog, it's got to watch out for herons too. All of those simple chains are overlapping and tangled together. It's actually kind of beautiful. So this much more realistic picture, this is what scientists call a food web. It's made up of all those different food chains linked together. And it really shows you how everything is connected and how animals have to rely on lots of different food sources to make it. Okay, now let's zoom out one more level. Imagine you take that food web, but you also add in all the non-living stuff. The water, the soil, the sunlight, the climate. When you put all of that together, the living and the non-living things interacting with each other, that's an ecosystem. Okay, so we have these incredible complex systems, but where does all the energy come from to begin with? What's the ultimate power source for all this? Well, for pretty much every ecosystem here on Earth, the answer is the sun. It all starts there. Plants, our producers, soak up that sunlight, and then that energy gets passed on every single time one organism eats another. It's the ultimate battery for life. Now, this is really interesting. There's a catch. A lot of that energy gets lost at every single step. Think about it. Just by moving, breathing, and staying warm, an organism burns up most of the energy it consumes, releasing it as heat. So as you go up the food chain, less and less energy is available. And that's the main reason why you almost never see food chains with more than, say, 5 levels. There's just not enough gas left in the tank to support anything higher. So these ecosystems are pretty tough, but they're not invincible. It's all about balance, like a carefully stacked tower. And sometimes things can come along and knock that tower over. Okay, check this out. This is real data from a woodland. Scientists were counting animals, and they found 27 snails and slugs in just 1 square meter. 27! But when they counted thrushes, the birds that eat them, they only found 3. That's a crazy imbalance. It's a massive red flag telling you something is seriously wrong here. So what happened? Well, one of the main theories is that a chemical from a new housing estate nearby was the culprit. It wasn't some huge dramatic disaster, it was a subtle poison that got into the ecosystem. This created a huge ripple effect. The chemical hurt the snails and slugs, and with their main food source gone, the thrush population just plummeted. It's a perfect, if sad, example of how one little change can send shockwaves through the whole system. And that, of course, leads us right to a really big topic, our own human footprint, and how our actions can affect these incredibly delicate systems. You see, we introduce all sorts of stuff into the environment. And when that stuff is harmful and starts to cause damage, well, that's what we call pollution. And it's not just one thing, right? It can come from so many places. Think about car exhaust, runoff from farms with pesticides, or waste from factories. All of it has to go somewhere, and often it ends up in our ecosystems. Now, one of the scariest effects of this is something called toxic accumulation. This is really serious. It's when a poison doesn't just disappear. Instead, it builds up inside organisms. And as you go up the food chain, it gets more and more concentrated, more and more dangerous. This is a great illustration of how it works. So you start at the bottom. Tiny plants absorb just a tiny bit of a toxin, no big deal, right? But then, one shrimp eats hundreds of those plants. Now all that toxin is concentrated in that one shrimp. Then a small fish eats dozens of those shrimp. The concentration gets even higher. You see where this is going? By the time a big predator, like a shark, eats a bunch of those fish, it's getting a huge and often deadly dose of that poison. The good news is there are people fighting to stop this. They're called conservationists. These are the scientists on the front lines studying how we're impacting nature, coming up with ways to fix it, and really working to protect the incredible variety of life on Earth. So that leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? We've seen how everything is connected. Understanding that is the first step. But the next step, well, that's on us. What can you do to help protect the ecosystems all around